Hey folks, welcome back to Bob's Bookshelf. I'm trying to get this channel going. I know I haven't posted in a while. Work has been super busy, but I've been catching up on books and I'd like to just start reviewing them. So hopefully you people will pick them up and start enjoying them as well. This book for this review is going to be American Apocalypse by Kurt Schlichter. Kurt Schlichter is a retired Army officer. He's also a columnist for townhall.com. And I've read several of his books. He's the author of the People's Republic series with the hero Kelly Turnbull. Great series of books, but they're no way tied into this American Apocalypse. This book is told from an oral history standpoint, where a situation happens in the United States, and it's with interviews with people that happen, people that what they experienced during the American Apocalypse. I'll read the quick synopsis about it. American Apocalypse, the Second American Civil War, tells the story of the United States ripped apart by conflict after a pair of assassinations allows America's left to take control of the government and weaponize it against the American people to ensure that it never loses power again. It is the story of Americans of all walks of life, red and blue, trying to survive against the backdrop of a brutal conflict in the cities and countryside, where soldiers and armed citizens battle to recover their freedom. From murderous leftist terrorists to heroic Appalachians defending their homes against foreign invaders, from regular citizens trying to survive starvation and terror to patriotic submariners risking it all to protect the homeland from foreign threats, from professional warriors to regular citizens called to arms. American Apocalypse is a violent gut punch, a fast and sometimes grimly funny novel that unsparingly describes and warns against the hell awaiting it at the bottom of America's slippery slope. Like his previous novel that I reviewed before this, which was called The Attack, that is also from an oral history standpoint. It's like an October 7th style attack, like what happened in Israel, happened in the United States. And that is like interviews with people who were there. Where were you and what were you doing during the attack? This is also from an oral history standpoint, where people over the course of the Second American Civil War, from both sides, what they were doing during the Second American Civil War. I will read the author's note. That way this video won't be too short. Now this is the author's note. This is not me. All right, author's note. After the I can't even read right now. After the October 7th, 2023 Hamas assault on Israel, I was inspired to write The Attack, a novel about a massive terrorist strike within the United States that would take us by surprise and cause an enormous number of casualties. I wanted to do two things with The Attack. First, I wanted to talk about how vulnerable we were, and in many ways still are. Even though we now have a sentient president, a competent administration, and a sealed border. Second, as always, I wanted to entertain. I didn't want it to be a pedantic slog through my thoughts on the subject. People just aren't going to read a boring novel, which is 100% true. That's why I chose to use the oral history format. As I talked about in my author's note to The Attack, this book is the same format used by Studs Terkel for his real-life books, as well as novels like Max Brooks's World War Z and General Sir John Hackett's super influential 1980 novel World War III. I guess the format lends itself to sweeping stories of bloody struggles. Most readers appreciated the format because it could take them to many different places across a wide narrative without having one character hopscotch around and just happened to be at the most important places at all the key plot points. In the attack, the format let me tell the story of a single terrorist strike. Here, I use it to tell the story of a 2-year Second American Civil War. Not comprehensively, but focusing on particularly important concepts. A note about how this relates to the People's Republic Kelly Turnbull books. It doesn't. American Apocalypse is a standalone novel. It's not a sequel to the People's Republic books and does not take place in that world. Sadly, Kelly will not make a cameo here. You'll just have to wait for his next adventure, which will be coming soon. And that's the book Panama Red, which I am going to be reading very shortly. And a review to follow. Now, there is going to be some overlap in the world building because when I was talking about America falling apart in the People's Republic series, I tried my best to predict what might happen should a civil conflict break out in the United States, and my general predictions do not change just because I'm writing a different novel. So, there are also red and blue forces in American Apocalypse, and there's a different new capital. It's not Dallas like in the Kelly Turnbull books, as well as a few other things like the prevalence of paramilitary forces and gangs mobilized and armed by leftists to enforce their will. Those things would be expected in any kind of civil conflict, but again, this is not part of the Kelly Turnbull cinematic universe. It is something wholly other. I'm writing American Apocalypse, the Second American Civil War, for the same reason I wrote the People's Republic series and The Attack. I'm worried. I'm worried about my country and where it's headed. I'm worried about people knocking down the foundations that hold up our unique society for short-term political gain. I've been to places around the world with the Army where I've seen what happens when countries fall apart, when neighbor turns on neighbor, and it's not pretty. Same here. I don't want that here. I desperately don't want that here, and that's why I've written American Apocalypse. As always, there will be stupid people, some of them hacks who used to organize cruises for cash until they convince leftist billionaires to fund their drivel, who will accuse me of wanting this to happen. Let me spell it out. If there is a national conflict caused by leftists, the winning rightists are not going to simply return to the status quo. There will be consequences, harsh ones. That's not my choice. There is no choice to be had. It would be inevitable. It's human nature, and it's all there, previewed in history, real history, not the commie garbage that passes for it today in academia and government schools. Of course, the very same people who will lie and say that this novel portrays what I wish would happen are the same people helping to destroy the norms and guardrails that kept our society out of conflict for nearly 250 years. What happens to the United States in the coming years is not my decision. It is the decision of all of us collectively. We can either embrace our Constitution or step into the fire. A society cannot go on with a dual-track justice system. It cannot go on with institutions prioritizing their ideological self-interest over their proper roles. It cannot go on piling up endless debt. It cannot go on with an arrogant, corrupt, fanatical, and historically illiterate ruling class that believes it has some sort of pagan divine right to rule the people who actually make this country work. We've got to find a way out of this, and I desperately hope that reforms under Donald Trump do it, and do it peacefully. This book is about the opposite of a peaceful resolution. It's a worst-case scenario, a horror story only a fool would take as some sort of wish casting. Some people imagine that if a conflict occurred, Red America would quickly conquer Blue America, and everything would be hunky-dory. That's a fatal conceit. As Mike Tyson memorably put it, everybody's got a plan until they get punched in the face. If society crumbles, it crumbles. Any large-scale breakdown of our social order is going to mean death and suffering on an order of magnitude we can barely comprehend. Maybe by reading this, people will comprehend some of it and think twice about the ugly alternative to finding a way to get along. And a civil war is an alternative. It could happen. America is not immune to history. Societies collapse into barbarism. That's how history works. We've been defying history for 2.5 centuries, and I pray we can continue forever. Hopefully this work will inspire people to make that happen. Obviously, there are a lot of unpleasant things in this book. For example, the conflict I describe is accelerated by the assassination of Donald Trump and J.D. Vance. I hope they and their families don't take offense at my artistic license. I wish I could say that was an outrageous and unrealistic concept, but we all saw Donald Trump nearly murdered on stage in Butler, Pennsylvania. His killer succeeded in murdering an innocent American. Just a couple of weeks later, a lunatic devoted to Ukraine tried to shoot him because he didn't like Trump's politics. Polls indicate that a plurality, at least, of self-identified Democrats believe it would be justified to murder our president over his politics. The malignancy is not just the realm of anonymous poll respondents. The former head of the Federal Bureau of Investigation, a position of awesome responsibility, giggled as he childishly posted a seashell death wish to our chief executive on social media. One of the hardest things to accept about our country today is that there are a significant number of Americans who wish death upon other Americans for political reasons. We need to wring this horrible trend out of our society. There are some on our side of the street, I firmly count myself among the conservatives, who would be Red America in this imaginary conflict, who think that a massive struggle would eventually purge all the leftist insanity from our country, and we would go back to being the United States that we remember, perhaps fancifully from the past. But my fellow conservatives who think that are wrong. There's no going back to the America that was if we cross the line into conflict. There's going to be no way to control the anger and hatred once America cries havoc and lets slip the dogs of war. I refer you to Roman history. You'll find echoes of it throughout this novel. I prefer the present to an authoritarian right-wing dictatorship, and I reluctantly prefer that to a genocidal left-wing dictatorship. 100 million corpses over the last century testify to what the left does with unconstrained power. The terrifying truth is that if we turn on ourselves, we will never be the country we once were again. All the people sitting around talking about finally just eliminating the opposition through force should understand that what they're doing is eliminating our country as we know it. What's scary is that there are people out there who are willing to make that trade. In any case, I am deeply grateful that you've chosen to read American Apocalypse, the Second American Civil War. I received a lot of very moving feedback after the attack, and I hope this book sounds a similar warning and earns a similar reaction. Consider it a call, not to arms, but to the Constitution. We are all American citizens, and we all have a responsibility to our country. We can save it. We don't have to do this. What I write about is not inevitable, but it is possible. We must govern ourselves accordingly. Remember, we can choose not to have an American apocalypse. And that was Kurt Schlichter, written July 2025. So, I really enjoyed this book. I love the oral history format. Looking forward to his next book, which is part of the Kelly Turnbull series called Panama Red. As soon as I'm done, of course, there'll be a review on it here. So, again, folks, pick up American Apocalypse, the Second American Civil War by Kurt Schlichter. I think you'll enjoy it. So, all right, folks, thanks for watching, and have a great weekend. It's Memorial Day weekend, so remember why we celebrate this weekend, to honor those that have given the last full measure for their country, including some of my brothers in arms. So, all right, folks, I'll talk to you later.